Thanks for being here. If you don't know who he is, this is Dr. Burnett, Director of the School of Accounting, and we are pleased to have him here today. He's my mentor also, so everything I know I learned from this guy. So I hope you enjoy it and find it value add.
Okay. Hey, how's everybody going? You know, there's always a statement that says the ones that show up are the ones that make the world. So by virtue of those of you showing up, the key thing of it is now you'll be able to go and really figure out how you want to make the world go round. But even more important, because this is an intimate setting, I think we have an opportunity now to really learn from one another. And so I think this will be a lot more interactive as we talk. And I want you to feel comfortable as we have these discussions. Well, when the Center of Undergraduate Research and Creative Activity asked me to talk, one of the things that they said is we really want to introduce students to this whole concept of research. And so I said to them, well, why is it that we want to involve students so early in undergraduate research? And one of the things that they articulated was that if students are engaged in research early and they understand what research is all about, then what they can do is to really start to identify for themselves what is of interest to them. And once they have an idea of what is of interest to them, then they can start pulling out and figuring out how they can make this academic experience a lot more beneficial. And so once I understood that, I said, well, it kind of makes sense. And as a matter of fact, we have a project that you and I need to get back together on because I have all the data. And we're going to be working on it last semester. And if you're interested in this, I'd also like you to come in. If you're interested in working with us, we can also get you involved in early. But this research project that we had last year really looked at the undergraduate students, and it gave an idea of a perception of what was it that the undergraduate students felt was important for them relative to education. How they felt education prepared them for their particular activities or requests in life, and then even more so, how research fit into that. And so now that we have all the data, we're going to get in the process of start analyzing that data, and we're going to get started on that probably next week, okay, because I'm glad you were here. But one of the first things that I wanted to talk to you about is what is research? And I think that what I really want you to have a good handle on is in your own mind, in your own mindset, thinking, what is research? And the first thing I want to say to you is there are no wrong answers, okay? So whatever you say or whatever you think research is, you can articulate that, and then together we'll come up with a more, I guess, diverse, focused perspective on what research is. So tell me a little bit, what do you think research is? Just in general, there's no wrong answer. What is research to you?
To me, it's like if you have like a certain field you want to learn more about, you're just asking a question about what you want to find out about, gathering information about that.
And why do you think that's an important aspect of learning and education?
You get like a deeper understanding of that.
Of what you're interested in, okay? To you, I mean, you've done some research activities here. What is research to you? What does research mean to you?
To me, it's answering the question and gathering information to help support the question that you want to answer.
Okay, so what you're saying is research is really about having a question about something that you're interested in and then gathering information about that. Okay, so let's come back to you because you're our great little freshman and I'm just so excited that a freshman's here. Tell me, what kind of question would you have? Let's just choose accounting because that's your area of interest. What would be something that would be a question for you in accounting?
Personally, for me, it'd be like more about the different fields, like what each field of accounting is about.
Okay, and so even though you may not be looking at accounting per se in terms of debits or credits or whether or not we're doing financial statements, your first question is, what is accounting about? Okay, and that's an interesting research question. Well, now we have someone also here who has done a lot of research, and you tell me, why is that a research question? Why would finding information about accounting activities be a research question? And how would you define research?
Well, I define research as a systematic process that investigates a phenomenon of interest, utilizing accounting or economic theory, if we're talking about research in accounting, and that's how I define research.
Okay, so you define research like that. Now tell me, why would her query about understanding the different kinds of accounting be a research question?
Well, understanding the different kind of accounting is a research question in itself because it will provide, that process of investigating that query will provide you with some relevant information that you did not know before. So now she can make better decisions on what field she likes the most, what field fit her profile the most.
So research is really about adding what kind of information?
Value added.
Okay, so now we talk about your idea. You say you want to learn more about accounting, and you want to learn more about the different aspects of accounting. And then this young man said that it is about starting with a question. And then this other young man said that it is about adding value to your decision making. So tell me now, how do you think this whole process called research adds value to your decision making? What does it do that you didn't have before?
Well, it tells me more about the different fields of accounting. I can see which one fits my personality more. That's sort of that.
So it provides you information that you didn't have before that allows you to make value-added business decisions. Is that true? Okay, so tell me, what's a value-added business decision? What is a value-added business decision basis versus just a decision? What's a value-added business decision?
It could be multiple answers.
Well, give me one.
I'll say like evaluating equities. So
Well, just a value-adding, just in general, a value-adding business decision. What is a value-adding business decision?
it helps you make the best decision possible.
That's exactly right. So when you're talking about value-adding, when we have more information, because she said, this is something I'm interested in. And so I go in and I look at a research question. And that research question allows me to gather information. And then when I make information, then that allows me to make value-adding business decisions. And then once I make value-adding business decisions or decisions, then what am I able to do? Once I've made a value-adding decision, what have I done then?
Well, since you had questions, so you've made your choice to what to go with, and you might just want to advance to that decision and do something about it.
Okay. So, but once I have a value-adding scenario, once I have information that I didn't have before, then we're going to call that value-adding. Is that true? And what does it mean when it's value-adding? It means that what?
It means you made a better decision to get more money.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. You made a better decision because now you have information that you previously what? Didn't have before. And now that you have information that you previously didn't have before, then you're not going to do what? You hopefully will make a better decision because you have information. Let's just break it down. Let's say that we're going to go to Chicago and we have a AAA. This is really stupid, but just say we have a AAA membership and we're going to go to Chicago and we know that one road has all of this construction. And if we'd gone in and we went to AAA, the American Automobile Association, and we found that out, and we chose another route, then what does that information provide to us that we previously didn't have?
You could have made like a cheaper route.
Exactly. So that's what research, when we talk about it in general, when we talk about research in general, it is about providing information that we previously did not have about something that is of interest to us that allows us to make better decisions. It could be better decisions about some medical care. It could be better decisions about whether or not I want to wear plaid with stripes. It could be some better decision about whether or not, as a diabetic, I should eat 20 donuts versus 3. Whatever the decision is, I'm going to do research that will allow me to gain information that I previously didn't have. And that kind of information is what? It's value adding. It's adding value to what we previously did before. So now what I want to do is I want to take you through something called what I'm going to refer to as the research wheel or the research paradigm. And this is going to tell you basically how research goes from a question to gathering and using value-added business decisions. Okay? Now, what I always like to do is to give you a scenario as to where we're going to go, so that as I guide you through this, you can always pull back on the things that we talked about. So let's look at this. Let's start. We're going to look at figure 4-1, the research process. What's the first step that it says in this research process, young man? What's the first step?
observation.
It's an observation. So what do we mean by an observation? What has happened? We've observed something. What does that mean?
Something was interesting to us.
Mhm. Something was interesting to us. It could be your decision to major in accounting. It was interesting to you. And so now you want to look at, what is this accounting thing? So the first thing that sparks your whole perspective on research is bam, some phenomenon has happened. Something has happened that has caused you to say, I wonder why that happened. I wonder what precipitated that. I wonder if XYZ happened or XYZ occurs. For example, if I am a diabetic and I eat 25 donuts and I'm a diabetic, what do you think is going to happen?
It's not gonna be good for you.
Yeah, I'm going to pass out the phone with the mouth and all that other kind of stuff. So when I wake up out of the hospital and I eat those 25 donuts, what's the first thing I'm going to say? I should eat those 25 donuts. And so then I'm going to go a little bit further and say what?
What's the relationship between me eating those donuts and me being in the hospital?
Exactly. What's the relationship? And so now, do I know anything? I just know that I ate those 25 donuts and I passed out. Now what I want to do, because remember I'm trying to do value-added business decisions, now I want to do what? I want to figure out what?
Research.
I want to do the research. I want to figure out, first of all, why did I pass out? And second of all, what's the other thing? Because I like donuts, what's the second thing you think I'm going to try to figure out?
What amount of donuts?
That's it. That's it. Because see, I love me some donuts. And so I'm going to figure out how many donuts I can eat and not do what?
And not pass out.
And why is that value added? 2 reasons.
Because you'll make a good decision.
Okay.
You'll make the correct amount of donuts.
And I can still,
Still eat the donuts.
see? So that's what research is all about. You can put it within any context you want to, but at the end of the day, you want to be able to say to yourself, what am I going to get out of this information? And that makes it what?
Value adding.
That's exactly right. Okay, so let's look at it. The first step is we're going to observe. So what did I observe in my scenario? That I what?
You passed out at age 25.
Okay, and I'm like, okay, I can't do that no more, right? Okay, so then I figured out that's something that's of interest to me. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to gather information. I still haven't figured out anything yet, but I'm going to gather information that I didn't have before. And it's preliminary information, which is, what will we do in this donut eating thing?
You will start like assessing, just.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll say start assessing, how would you collect the data?
Well, no, not there yet. The first thing, you're just going to do some preliminary evaluations. This is
I'll
not a
probably just
test.
start thinking, thinking about, what would you, like, how would you go about that next step?
Exactly. What would be some of the preliminary things you might do?
Like thinking back about other times you eat donuts.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. How many other times did I eat donuts, or how many other times did I eat a Snickers bar and then pass out? Or how many times did I eat Snickers bars or donuts and pass out? So I'm going to start gathering information that's going to tell me stuff about the observation. And my observation was what?
That you passed out when you ate,
Not when I ate donuts, when I ate 25. And what I really want to figure out basically is,
How many donuts I can eat without passing out?
exactly. And so then I have to step back and say, I ate 37 donuts one time and I didn't pass out. I ate 52 donuts and I didn't pass out. I ate 1 donut and I passed out. So there's something going on other than the what? Other than the,
Passing out when you eat donuts?
yeah, the number of donuts. There's something else going on there. So I got to gather all this information about what's going on. Everybody with me on this? So the first step was what? The first step was to observe passed out donuts, okay? The second step was to do what?
Preliminary thinking about, how to collect the data.
Not, you still collecting the data.
About the previous.
Yeah, collecting more information about the scenario, okay? Now, the third step is where we know that I passed out when I ate the donuts, okay? We know that I ate 37 donuts and didn't pass out. I ate 1 donut and didn't pass out. So there's something going on here. And so once we identify that, there's an observation that I passed out, the second thing is I've gathered some data to figure out what happened when I passed out, or what happened when I ate the donuts and didn't pass out. The third thing that we have to do is we have to say to ourselves, we really have to define what the problem is. And when I say problem, I don't mean like a mistake or something that's bad. We have to define what we're trying to do. Okay? So, in this instance, what would we be trying to do? What would be my problem definition in this scenario?
Your problem definition in that scenario would be what else? What's all the factors that contributed to you passing out?
Mhm.
Because eating a donut is not you eat 1 or 50 or 25, you still pass out.
Mhm.
There is something, the other factor that contributed to that.
Okay.
So you want to probably do a.
Don't go too far.
All right.
Okay. The first thing was what? Observing. The second thing was what? Collecting data. Now what we say to ourselves is there's a dependent variable, or there's an outcome that we're going to have, which is passing out. And we're going to say that may be related to XYZ. Okay? We don't know, we've gathered all this data, but we've said that could be related to something. So tell me, in addition to me eating the 25 donuts, what could also be contributing to me passing out?
Your health.
My health. Your health, that's one thing, okay? Because remember what we said, sometimes I ate 25 donuts and I passed out, sometimes I ate 1 donut and I passed out. So it could be just my general health. Okay, what could be another thing?
I would say the branded donuts.
The branded donuts, because one could be a lot sweeter than the other one. It could have chocolate on it. It could have sprinkles on it. That's more sugar. What's another thing that could contribute to me passing out?
The mixture of what did you have the donuts with?
That's exactly right. The balance between what I ate in comparison to the donut. Another thing could be, now remember, because I focus on being fat all the time. What else could I do that could really maybe make me more healthier?
Work out.
Yeah, the extent to which I work out, the extent to which I exercise. Because what it says to me is that, remember, I ate 1 donut one time and I passed out. Then I ate 25 donuts and didn't pass out. So that could be because of what? Right before I ate the donuts, I did what? I worked out, so my blood sugar was down to begin with. You see what I'm saying? There's one more thing though, thinking about what could happen. It could be the extent to which what? Something I have no control over.
Oh, yeah,
If the donuts were good or bad.
No. That's a good one, but that's a good one. That could be something. And what we're doing in research is we're saying what could be the problem. That's going to be our step 4. But what else could it be?
The unknown.
Well, she kind of said that. That's the unknown. But one other thing could be, and I'm just giving an example, could be your family history. Because if my mother, my father, my sister, and my brother were diabetics, then it means that I'm probably going to be a what? A diabetic. Now, what he said and what you said is the last thing. We can't put everything in the world in this research, can we? So some of the stuff is going to be unknown. And we're going to have to accept that some of it is unknown. But what we're going to do is we're going to identify that which what we do know. Now let me ask you a question. Because this is how beautiful research is. You define what you do know. And then once you define what you do know and you know that that's there, then once you get that research, it allows you to do what?
Like, put it together and figure out how we don't know.
And that's the unknown. See how smart you are? You're so smart. Because what it says is that once we have all this stuff that we do know, and we know definitively that that is the deal, then what we can say is there may be something that we don't know that we can bring in there. Because it also may be the fact that, and let's just bring it up because it happens all the time, I'm an African American. And we are at times prone to diabetes because of our diets over the years. And so once we eliminate all that other stuff, then we start bringing in ethnicity. And then we start bringing in what else? What else could be the case? Age. And then we start bringing in, I am a what? I am a man, you are. That's exactly right. So we can start bringing in all of these variables. But the only way that we're able to bring in all these variables is because we've isolated what? We've isolated those that were previous. And now that unknown, we can start picking stuff out of that unknown. Okay? So let's start. What's the first thing that we have in research? What is research? Research is what? Let's define, what is research?
In my terminology.
Yes, that's all it is in your terminology.
It's learning about something that's interesting, new, and something that's unknown to you.
Mhm. So at the end of the day, you can make what?
A decision.
Mhm.
A value-added decision.
That's exactly right. What's the second step? What's the first step of this whole research wheel?
Observe.
Is observing something. Okay? Boom, something hitting it. Royce, you ate 25 donuts, you passed out. What's the second thing we do?
Start, collecting data.
You still want to be on that data, bro. You want to start observing things. So it's the same thing, but we have a whole big thing about collecting data. That's a whole nother step. But the other thing you want to do, his second step, he loves that collecting data step. What's the second step?
Like collecting information.
Collecting information. Tell him again.
Collecting information.
Okay, well, repeat it.
Collecting information.
Okay, we're going to collect information. And then what's the third step we want to do?
You want to define the problem.
We want to talk what the problem is. Okay, now, let me explain something to you about research. You can do all the stuff you want to. You can pull all of these items together. But what makes your research really, really, really tough? What makes your research really make sense?
Link your query and what you observe and what you collected in that second step, link it to a theory.
To a theory. Okay? You have to link it to a theory. Okay, let's kind of talk about this. What is a theory? What do you think? Now remember, we're just having a good time here. This ain't no test. Well, what's a theory? What would you say a theory is?
It's a lot of answers for it. I'll say it's a way of thinking to prove something that's a question that you have, and you proving it to the point that it's hard for other people to prove it.
Well, you're getting there. You're getting there. What do you think a theory is?
That's what you believe is right.
Why are you getting there? You're getting there. What do you think a theory is?
Well, what I believe is a collection of observations, and but then it doesn't have to be true in each case. So you're going to try it out, and you call it theory.
Okay. What's a theory?
A theory is a systematic answer to a certain query under specific assumptions and specific settings.
Okay, here we go. When we talk about making money, what's the whole idea of being in business? What's the whole idea of being in business? What's the whole idea of being in business?
Working for a business?
Yeah, what's the whole idea of a business is to do what? Their main focus is to
Run your business?
Maximize profit.
to make money. Okay? The whole thing in the whole wide world, the only reason I'm in business is to make money. Even if it's a nonprofit where we're doing stuff like education or healthcare, we have to make money so that we can do it again. Even if it's nonprofit, we have to make money so that we can sustain ourselves. Okay? Now, when we talk about making money, in business, there's something called the neoclassical view of the firm. And the neoclassical view of the firm says that the only reason the firm is in business is to make money, or to make a profit, or to benefit. And anything other than that is ancillary. Okay? Now, when we look at that in terms of how we develop the way that we're going to structure a project, if we were looking at business, we could say the only reason that we are assigning relationships to revenues and expenses is because at the end of the day, we want to do what?
Make a profit.
Okay, we want to make a profit. So what allows me to go out and tell people that the reason I'm developing this relationship is because I think companies want to make a profit? What allows me to say that without anybody saying to me, well, how do you know that?
You've done research?
You've done research, but now you have a
Value added.
yeah, but and you have done research, you've done the value added, and now your evidence is so strong, it becomes
Theory.
a theory. You are really, really smart. I am so proud of you. What did we just say? We've done all this work, and now we've done it so much that we have a what?
Theory.
And what does the theory tell us?
It's a systematic way of thinking. So saying that the companies want to make profit.
So let's go back to this. Evidence has suggested that if you're a diabetic and you don't do what you're supposed to do, what's going to eventually happen?
Your blood sugar will go crazy and horrible problems.
Exactly. So it's irrefutable. Is that true? It's irrefutable. So a theory would say to you that the reason that I'm pulling all of this together is because the evidence has suggested, there's been so much evidence that makes a theory that says to me that if I eat all this sugar, if I don't exercise, if I don't do what, if I don't do this, then what's going to happen to me?
Pass out or ultimately die.
Exactly. So that allows me to pull all of these components together. Okay? So what I'm saying to you is even though you have an observation, okay, even though you have some preliminary analysis, not data gathering, some preliminary analysis, even though you have a definition of a problem, what's going to pull it together for you to actually do the research? A theory. I don't understand that. Tell me, what did I just say?
You need a theory.
You need a theory to do what?
To do your research.
To do your research. Because when people are going to come to you and they're going to say, how do you know that? What are you going to do? You're going to say what? Because,
Because I did the research.
and I have a,
Theory.
and you're going to say, leave me alone. And what they're going to do?
Leave you alone.
They're going to leave you alone. Because you have a what?
A theory.
You have a theory. And the theory will save you. Or it will also destroy you. Because if you have all this stuff cobbled together, but you don't have a what?
Theory.
Then people are going to say, how could you be associated? It's just like saying, because I'm a diabetic, I have an elephant in my house. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? But people do research like that. They say, well, because I'm a diabetic, my house is green. Does that make any sense? Is there any empirical evidence? Is there anything that will allow you to link being a diabetic to a green house? Is there anything? But is there a theory or is there a body of knowledge that will allow you to say that as a diabetic, I have to watch what I eat? Is there all kind of evidence to suggest that? So now when you have the theory, then you can pull all of the other three steps together. You with me? Okay, now, the next thing that you want to say is we have a what? Let's articulate. What's the first thing we have? We have a what? What's the second thing?
Collecting information.
Yes, preliminary. Yes, preliminary analysis. The third thing is you want to do a definition or a statement of the problem. And then the fourth step is to say, now I have a theory. Sometimes people flip 3 and 4. I would prefer to have a theory and then have a definition of a problem. Because the theory allows me, first of all, to define my problem. Some people say you have to have a definition of the problem before you have a theory. I would say you have to have theory before you can define the problem. But it's semantic, it doesn't matter. Okay? The fifth step that you have is now you have all of this information. And now what do you want to do? Now you want to do what? You have all this information. You know that there was an observation. We know now that there was a preliminary analysis. We know that we did step number 3, which was what?
Collecting the information.
No, step number 3 was defining the problem. Step number 4 is a theory. And now we can say what? We want to suppose, or we want to guesstimate, or we want to hypothesize what we would expect. We want to hypothesize what the outcome would be if we had a certain scenario. So for an example, we've gone through all of this analysis, right? Okay? And we can say to ourselves, one hypothesis that we know would happen would be the more that we eat donuts, we would expect that my blood sugar level would go, what? Up. The more I exercised, I would expect my blood sugar level to do what? Okay. The more that there was a preponderance of diabetes in my family, the more likelihood it would be that I would, okay. And then the other thing would be that the more that I watch my diet, the more likely that my blood sugar level would be what?
We could.
Okay. I've done all of those, but now we've done all of those and we've satisfied that. We're going to test those, but now we're in a different situation. We have all of that, but now let's look at it to see. I wonder if the fact that he is also in an environment where maybe there is a lack of recognition or understanding about diabetes, would that have an impact on his blood sugar? So that would mean, does the educational level also have something to do with my blood sugar? Now, why are we able to, now think about this, why are we able to bring that hypothesis to the table? Because that's something that was interesting to us. We did all this other stuff, but now we're trying to add value to the literature, and now we're saying, I wonder, does the fact that maybe you're not, he has a high school education or is financially viable, I wonder why, if that has an impact. Why could we say that now?
If he doesn't know much about what's going wrong with them, he might not know how to control it.
Or if financially, if they don't have the what?
Like the means to buy healthier food.
Exactly. Or if they don't have the capacity to buy healthier food, means not necessarily the money, but the capacity to go, if there's no grocery store in that area, and the only thing they have is a fast food restaurant, then the likelihood of them not being able to go and shop in a grocery store with healthy foods could also impact my diabetes. So do you see how we are now saying this is something new? And what started this whole thing? The whole thing was that I did what? I passed out when I ate 25 donuts. And what told me all along that if I ate 25 donuts, I'm probably going to pass out if I'm a diabetic? What allowed me to do that? And that is the theory. And now that I have this theory, and now that I understand this, I can use that theory to expand and ask other
Questions.
which is additional. That's exactly right. Do you see how beautiful this is? Do you see how simple this is? But it all started out with a what? It all started out with an observation. Now, once we have that hypothesis, then we're going to go to step number 6, which is the research design, and step number 7, which is the data collection and analysis. So do you see now where you have this research design, and in that research design, that's where you do all of the data analysis and the design of your study. And that's a subject for a whole nother area. We're not going to talk about that as much. But the key thing I want you to understand here is that this is where you are able to design the study and develop it such that you can test. What's the hypothesis that we're going to have? Is that people who are poor are people who are ill-educated, probably
are going to have more trouble with diabetes.
Exactly. You see how beautiful this is? You see how beautiful this is? Because now we've added another hypothesis, or a series of hypotheses, that are allowing us to research more than we previously did. And if we're researching more than we previously did, what are we adding to the existing literature? If we're researching more than we previously knew, now what are we adding to the existing body of literature? More? That's exactly right. Because at the end of the day, the whole purpose of your research is to provide additional
Evidence to prove your
but it's additional, what kind of knowledge?
that backs up your theory.
Why is it value added?
Because it's a new contribution, it's something that didn't exist in the previous literature.
Exactly. And now, if my evidence suggests to me, and this is the beautiful part, if my evidence suggests to me that because of my socioeconomic status, because of my capacity to go out and get resources, or my capacity to have an education to understand, if that also contributes to my diabetes, now what can we say? We can say that the level of your blood sugar could be dependent upon what we originally said, which was your what?
Like your family history.
What you eat.
What you ate, work out, your ethnicity, your gender, and now we have what? education, and financial status. So now what has happened to that which we formerly didn't know about? Now it becomes what? That error term or that unknown now has become smaller and we have more information. Now what are we going to do with all of this information now? We're going to go out and we're going to say, now we have all this other evidence that suggests that not only in terms of those other things, we now have socioeconomic status, then we may go and look at a whole nother thing. But what's going to allow us to do that? The research that we just did and the theory that says that if you do these certain things, your sugar level is going to increase or decrease. So that's how research works. That's how research works, because you now have all of this evidence that you previously did not have before that allows you to get more and more and more and more learned about a particular area. Okay? So what I want to do is that's going to conclude what I want to say. What I'd like to know is, what is it that you learned from this session that you didn't know before you got here?
I learned like how to start off your research and where to go from there.
And how important research really is. Okay? What did you learn about yourself?
Like what I want to know if I want to start researching.
And also, you're very smart. What about you, young man?
The theory, I really didn't understand it in this context before, so I'll definitely say that. And the fact that I need to be more patient and listen.
Yeah, because I'm telling you, research, you work all night long. Let me tell you something, you may end up doing stuff a million different ways, and you have to do it 1,000 million ways to get it. What did you take away from this?
Well, I knew what research was, but now I know how I can lay out a diagram and do it systematically. So it becomes easier and it is more organized.
Okay. What about you, young man?
Well, to me, I guess it's just the importance of going back to the basics and just understanding the basics.
And understanding what it's all about. Does anybody have any particular questions for me about anything? Anything at all about research?
What's your specialty with research? If you could?
Well, it used to be environmentalism, where I looked at the relationship between economic and environmental performance. And I looked at the neoclassical view of the firm, which says that the firm should only be doing stuff that's going to benefit them. And so if in fact they're doing stuff to reduce pollution, at the end of the day, that doesn't add an extra car or an extra bicycle that they can sell. So the neoclassical view of the firm would tell me what? That if I reduce pollution, then I really am doing what? If I'm reducing pollution, does that add to my bottom line? Theoretically.
It could.
Well, but theoretically, because the only thing it says, the neoclassical view of the firm says, the only thing you should be doing is producing good output, which would be the bicycles. So if I reduce pollution, if any of my energy is spent on reducing pollution, does that go against the neoclassical view of the firm? It does. But what I found out is that there are these intermediary effects, that if you reduce pollution, you reduce the cost of cleanup, and so therefore you improve your bottom line. So that was what I did. Now though, I'm looking more into this whole concept of, there are two things. One is education, and the other one is this whole idea about ethics, and what ethics means, and how we can not manipulate it, but how we can investigate ethics to see whether or not ethics in decision making in business really makes a difference. And that kind of talks a little bit about social responsibility, but at the end of the day, it's a little bit different, because you can have all these socially responsible agendas, but if the people are not ethical, then it doesn't matter. And I'm doing it within the context of accounting, and that's why it's so interesting, because the kind of research that I do would never really be thought of as accounting research, because people are always looking at the bottom line. But my whole perspective is that when you look at the bottom line, you have to look at things that contribute to the bottom line, which are decisions about how well you want to help society. Now that doesn't mean I'm this flaming person who chains himself to a tree and says, oh no, you won't cut the tree. I mean, if that tree is going to, produce wood that's going to build something, cut that tree down, okay? But we have to understand what the ramifications of cutting that tree down are, okay? Any other questions about anything? Anything at all? Oh. Okay. Okay, well, I want to thank you guys for coming. I hope you enjoyed this. This was a really great experience, and I look forward to seeing you guys again.
All right,